Well, hello, world. I hope you guys enjoyed the feature film Tyler. This film was emotionally wrenching. It was had some awesome performances. You can tell there was a heavy craft behind the writing and directing of this project. I'm excited to have a conversation with you guys tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Yes, thank you.
If I could just have you guys introduce yourselves, let me know a little bit about how you got connected to Tyler and your roles, either be in front of or behind the film.
Yeah, my name is Marvin Van Buren. I'm the writer, director, and producer of Tyler. And yeah, I'll hand it off to George just so we can go through this.
Yeah, no, I'm George Skianos. I am the co-producer, co-writer, alongside with Marvin in this feature. And yeah.
And I'm Monk Freed, and I'm simply an actor in this project.
There's
a major part.
Listen how humble he is. Simply an actor. There's
Just
nothing
an actor.
simple about what you pulled off in this film. I normally don't like to start off gassing up actors or directors, but you guys went above and beyond with this film. Like, it felt like I was watching like a studio project throughout, and the intensity of the character for any actor looking to build a reel, out there. Monk does it all in this performance. He's really whatever emotion you think an actor can do, Monk is going full force towards it. So awesome performances, and really should be proud of this project. So before we dig too much deeper, I really want to know, Marvin and George, I don't know if you guys can take turns telling me, where did you guys come up with this concept?
Yeah, George and I came up with this concept at the really onslaught of the early pandemic. And it came out of frustration, and we thought we were, 2020 prior to March 13th, we had, dreams and goals and that stuff, and that, sequestered a lot of that things. And we wanted to figure out how can we move our career on further and just simply be creative. But George can fill in the details of how it really came together.
Yeah, no, it definitely was this kind of existential, existential crisis in the face of a world, world, almost feeling like world-ending event that really changed everyone's lives. And so we were talking back and forth. At one point, we thought about doing a short, and then we were bouncing it back. And then, and Marvin, you can correct me, but I believe it was you came to me, you called me, and you were like, "Let's do a movie about robbing the diners." Yeah. And the reason why the diners come up is because my family happens to own a few diners, and it's access to a location that not a lot of people might not have access to. And that's pretty much where that kind of started. And then we were writing it out till then.
That's a brilliant way to start things. That's a brilliant way to start things when you think about having a location, because a lot of filmmakers, they get really ambitious when they're writing. And that's me. I go gun ho, but the smart thing to do, the intelligent thing to do is to do what you know and what you can do. And the backdrop of this film is a diner, a nice classical looking diner. And it seems like it was important to you to make sure you got that lifestyle correct and the look of the film correct.
Yeah. Just in general, this is my second feature film. And with my first feature, I knew early on in my career that people weren't going to afford me opportunities, so I had to create these opportunities. And when coming up with ideas, I just assumed that I'm not going to have a lot of support. So I reverse engineer ideas. I'm like, okay, in my first film, it was just who are the people that owe me favors? What do I have access to? And my talented friends, they're just who are actors, are yeah, cool, man, whatever, and then put it together. Here was this had to be we had to be more exacting because we were dealing also with a pandemic. So we had to really think about. We had to really think about how can we be economical, but also not undermine the story we're telling. So again, that was all. And again, I come from heavy production. I was a DP and AC back in New York, and I worked on like a lot of sets, and I'll always see problems occur really because production didn't take an account of just certain variables in
Yep.
trying to execute a task. So yeah,
it's a lot of money to make a movie, and it's even more anxiety when you're trying to pull things together on a shoestring budget and like have people do favors, because a lot of times, on small independent productions, certain people, if they're not getting paid or they're doing a favor, they're not taking it 100%. Never in this film that I feel like anyone wasn't taking what their duties were seriously. And that's why I go to the thing where I'm saying it feels like a studio film at time, like a high budget film. So how did you get involved with these gentlemen here?
I was an option, and I was reached out to directly by Marvin, and that's how the ball started kind of going rolling. Then my agent got in the loop, and we started talking. And I mean, the second he hit me up and I got the script, I was like, I'm in this. I'm doing this. You can't. You already said it to me. You can't back out. I'm in it.
Can't take it back.
Can't take it back. So I weaseled my way in, and it worked out. And there was we had the privilege of having a lot of time when it was first sent to me, and then a couple weeks or months later when I found out it was like confirmed I got it, to when we were actually shooting was 7 months. I had a lot of time like waiting around, and I felt like that helped me really get into the world of the character and spend so much time reading it and imagining it.
What did you
never get so much time, I guess, to really live with that?
With that time you had, what was your inspiration on building your character to make it something unique and not something that we, have seen stereotypically? Like, what did you do to get in that mindset?
Yeah, well, I try to imagine myself like I said, we were speaking before, like I felt like when I read it right off the bat, I was like, I am interested in this. I'm interested in understanding it, in telling the story, which is personal to where Marvin and Georgios come from, involved in the businesses that are super close to them, like the diner and like people and crew. It was like their world, where they came from, and I was really excited to be a part of it. And I feel like I would talk to Marvin. He's like, these are based off people I know, like circumstances, people I've in my high school. Like I was largely unfamiliar with Mahopac and Carmel, which are like in upstate New York. Like never really spent much time there. So there was a lot that I had to kind of like pick up on, and kind of like the cultural, sociological kind of aspect of places like that, the really desire that a lot of people, I guess, share of like wanting to leave and being from a place that you really want to escape from, which I feel like a lot of people can relate to,
I can definitely, when I was watching this film, there's a lot of moments, because I'm from a small town, and one of the things that really captivated me about the film was from a small town, everybody has big hopes and aspirations, but they get stuck in a loop. And I grew up, I wasn't a good kid. I wasn't like the best of them. I hung out with the wrong crowd, and there's a lot of bad influences. Everybody thinks that there's a get rich quick scheme, a way to get you to the next level. And a lot of time it's very cutthroat. And it's really sad, because sometimes when you go back to those small towns, you see people that are stuck on a loop years later. And Tyler, that's what I felt. I felt like the circumstances, the environment, the neighborhood, these influences around him kept him in a loop. And there's these moments where we want him to do better. And like when he first started his first experience at the diner and he finally has things coming together, we're hopeful for his character. But it's almost like a relapse, a drug relapse. When people have it good and things don't work out, they always turn back to the negative. And that's really a tragedy in this film with your character, and almost an explosion with everyone around him. So going back into that with Marvin and George, with a story like this, it's like a Shakespearean, it's a modern day tragedy in a way. What do you guys feel is the most important when conveying a story like this?
Always a version of truth. Like I think Georgios is. We always think about even in the most absurd moments. We always
Mhm.
try to keep it grounded. Um, I was thinking about this. I felt like when George and I. This is the first time I ever wrote something with another person, and George really helped me keep the emotional elements
Yeah.
in intact. Like I I use a lot of my personality to color Tyler, and I felt, and George, you correct me if I'm wrong, you use a lot of your personality to color Jim, which
Yes,
like yeah. So but yeah, and George can continue from that on.
absolutely. Yeah, no. Yeah, a lot of the stuff did come from, real. There's some real world, like at least from my life, real world inspiration in certain aspects of the story regarding Jim, even the diners, and even like even Stavros to a degree. Um, but and yeah, it's just like what you said before. Just it's just about taking what you know, and back in the day, I used to write like not very high concept goofy shit, and then it's like this is my first time along with Marvin, because Marvin in a sense grounded me in a sense too, because like I learned from him, especially from his past, reading his past project, um that like to keep it like small, and keeping things like small and in scale can still be powerful, like emotionally.
Sometimes it's larger than life. Like we can go really ambitious with a film and with a really high concept film, but sometimes they're so shallow and surface level. I mean, I'm not going to name any productions out there that you see, big blockbusters, that, there's a lot going on, but there's nothing
Yeah.
that people can relate to. That's one thing that this film is very relatable. I mean, if you live in a small town, or you know someone with financial struggles or addictions, or that just wants to do better for themselves, they don't even have to be a criminal, they could just want better, but there's things holding them back, and everyone makes excuses. There's a lot of people out there that make excuses for not doing better, and this film is, has hope at many moments. And yeah, it's just a relatable film. And the one thing that I'm really curious about is, because Marvin and George, you guys had to collaborate together in creating something. I know you guys got a long running friendship, which, I don't care how close I am, family, friend, blood, whatever it is. When you're writing something, there's going to be two people that are passionate on opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes. How do you guys get over creative differences? Fight it out?
No, not at all. I think we George and I we have a great deal of love and respect for one another. Like and also with
Yeah.
all types with every relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic or just general interpersonal relationship, you have to mesh. There has to be symmetry. And George and I, we have very similar
Yeah.
sensibilities. We grew up watching, listening to the same bands, to the same general artists. We we like the same movies, and we like the same music videos. We read the same books and stuff. So it really, we knew, yeah, we differ in certain aspects, but we were aligned with what type of story we wanted to tell. And yeah, because and also it does help that like you have a level of respect for one another, and like kind of like. And one thing about George and I, we really, without really saying it, we understand our boundaries. So like, okay, like let's not push the issue here. Like we'll table this. Well, like unless it's something that it's so like I have to be hardline on this, or George has to be hardline on this. Then we have to like make our peace and conviction. But we know that this is not, whatever happens cannot hinder the project or deter the project in any way. It only can improve the project.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and even like honestly, like from now on, I definitely want to like, constantly work with Marvin, because we'll trade each other ideas, and then and like our enthusiasm for them is like really like, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. Like we want to do this, and then we'll tweak the minor details, but there never really any like there was never really any strong sense of like, no, this has to be like this way. We were pretty lockstep.
Wow. That's great. That's a great working relationship. You guys should definitely continue, because you sometimes hear horror stories and butting heads and whatnot, especially with such a high pressure project. And I think probably you guys had a what was the preparation like for this film, like as opposed to time, like a timeline?
We shot for 13 days. We had 1 day of pickups. We had a couple rehearsals. From when we finished the draft from when we were shooting was the same year. I believe it was the same calendar year. And we did a lot of location scouting. And also George and I did a test shoot day. We actually shot a part of
we did.
we shot a part of the movie before we even started principal photography, like months before, because we just wanted to get a sense of how we can move through certain aspects of the movie. And because I didn't shoot this movie, I wasn't a cinematographer. My good friend Tom Jezik is a talented cinematographer. He's worked with him for a very long time, so I knew, and he's also from the area. He was born he's from Carmel, so like we did tech scouts and stuff. And I'm a very technical director, so like I had a gauge of how long can things take, and understanding that the budget is really it's a micro budget movie, so it's really scrappy. And George and I knew we had to kind of lean into it without it being goofy, but also grounded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, but like finding Monk though was because I knew like everything like hinged on Tyler, the person that embodies his character, and I just knew like this person had to really like connect with an audience to like really have you empathize with him and give him latitude to commit the terrible acts that he eventually commits. So I was just looking at, I was on Netflix and there was a show Darby was on, this kid with like just saying nothing with like these sharp eyes. I'm like, okay, I think that's the guy. And then I'm very transparent. Because I contacted Monk months before I even contacted his agent, and on Instagram. And I was just looking at Instagram and I'm like, I think this just like, and then looking at like old other movies he was in and just studying like those scenes, like watching like certain scenes on YouTube and just like, and looking at like, just thinking about the script and I'm like hearing his voice. So it, like that's, and sorry for the long-winded nature of it, but like, that's kind of, I feel like this entire preparation for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, fucking those eyes. Like when they get sharp, they become sharp, like as daggers. Like when like some of those moments were good. Holy shit!
I want to say, like, to go on to Monk's performance, and you guys made a really great choice. But with him, you guys have a great ensemble. The chemistry between Monk and your other co-stars in the film, his significant other, like there's some intense moments where there had to be a sense of trust. And what Monk, going into that, like, what was it like? Did you guys have time for rehearsals, or was like you just met on set? We're like, hey, high five. We're gonna have some really domestic issues right now, and let's get into it. Like,
yeah, we kind of hit the ground running. I think we did 1 or 2 rehearsals when I was in LA. First, shout out to all the co-stars: Charlie, who plays Caden, Carlos, who plays Jim, and Frankie Monroe, who plays
Abel.
Drug dealer Abel.
Yeah.
And again, these are all people mostly from New York, so I feel like I just got to like kind of walk into everyone's kind of world. Like even Tom being from Caramel or Mehopac, like it was having to establish the trust pretty immediately right off of the bat. I feel like everyone did a really good job bringing a new dimension to their character. They definitely helped me find who my character was in relation. And everyone was a really trained actor and really dedicated to the craft. Even, everyone, John Giones, who plays Stavros, and Tim Farley, who play my boss in the first scene. And I feel like that scene is so funny because, again, when you think about the character and how an audience would relate, like he says "fuck you" to the boss and storms off, and you can relate from so many ways. You could be like, oh damn, I wish I could have said that in my life. That would be so, to imagine the possibility of saying that. And then you also have to be like, what would I think of someone who would do that? Do I think that that is appropriate or not? And to kind of give someone that kind of grace to be like, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I would endorse it or promote it, but it's cathartic. And to see someone do that is kind of inspiring. You're like, dude, sometimes you need to say fuck you to people and fight for what you believe in and walk away from something that you don't believe in.
I think there's moments, though. There's many layers to your character in the film. In the film, when it starts, the audience really doesn't know why you are the way you are. But as the scenes as we go deeper and deeper into this feature and the layers are revealed, we kind of understand why you are so jaded and you don't have really great trust in people. Later on in the film, once you build some relationships and friendships with other people, you're so unsure of them in the project. And ultimately you're the one that should not be, trusted ultimately. So it's like all these different things are happening in the film to your character, but you're a part of this world for them. So you're kind of like the catalyst for a lot of people's, issues. And I think these type of stories are really great. So you guys really did a great job at balancing the performances and without rehearsals, hitting the ground running. That's phenomenal stuff. I really want to know, what was it like to be in that mind space? Did you need did you had to get to a different headspace in those intense moments where you what did you do to prepare for that?
Yeah, I was staying pretty solitary for as much as I could of the process, because this character is clearly, I mean, they don't give you his whole life story, but you can tell when he gives bits and pieces of his life, the context comes out that he kind of was raised alone, or even if he had parental figures, there was a huge distance between them and lack of trust. And you do see those moments with Jim or Caden or with Frankie when he wants to be closer than they are and they push the boundaries, and then you feel like that trust is betrayed, and ultimately he takes advantage of all of their trust as well. And I do feel also that unspoken circumstance of where everyone comes from, Jim losing his father, Caden's intense kind of church life that she's born into. No one knows where Abel come from, and Tyler. These people are so formed by their circumstances and these environments, and I feel you kind of see the area and the land, the town is such a character in the story too. The diner, the actual small town of. I mean, it's upstate New York. It could be generalized. It could be seen as anywhere. It's Mahopac. And I feel those have just as much to do with the actual characters themselves in terms of how they can relate to each other and build that. And I also just heard the other day, there's this artist that I like, and he was talking about force as a form of currency and how we use force to get the things that we want, and how, we think of money and we think of all of these things. And I feel that was a really interesting way to think about this character, going after the things you want first, not even having enough creativity to know what he wants, let alone how to go after it. And then as he develops that, you see how force is wielded for better or for worse to go after the things you want. We hope it's for good, and you kind of want to root for him until kind of at the end, maybe it's just my opinion, you're you kind of go a little too far, and you're maybe I can't root for you or support you in your quest. And there's so many ways to go about the things that you want. Could he just put in the time and the hours and keep working and grinding? Does that, I don't know, intense sense of the world is ending, you need to get out of town, there's no money, this urgency that is really emotional, that's causing him to take this speed up, take shortcuts, cheat, fuck people over, rob, steal, murder.
That's what I feel ultimately, is it's a man who I don't want to say impatient, but he needs a man that wants a shortcut. And I feel that's any reason why people get into that mindset, unless it's for necessity. It's people looking to make a shortcut as opposed to put it in the work that needs to be done a lot of times.
I'm gonna push back on that. I think with Tyler, when you look at a large contingent of people in this country that lives below a certain poverty line, a socioeconomic standing, the floor to ceiling ratio between committing a crime and not dying is like very thin. And I really wanted to show the process. I really wanted to show the process of that for a character that frankly looked like Tyler, that was a white male, because when you have that, the audience, the truth of the matter is like how the audience views certain types of characters. It's easier for them and faster for them to get to a level of empathy. And for this character, I wanted to kind of like show that message, like the floor to ceiling ratio from trying to live a good life, from like throwing it all away in a very volatile way, can happen like that. So that's why I feel like the ambiguity of his character is skewed. It's even more pronounced because most people in that circumstance would probably like to think, oh man, like you went a little bit too far, and Tyler in fact did. But you don't know what you'll do when you're in that circumstance. You don't, especially for a person that hasn't been really socialized like Tyler. It's again, that switch can happen in such an abrupt and also volatile way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. If you were to do this film again, I asked this question, and this is almost like a learning standpoint of like what you've learned, or in general, if you would change nothing. This could go from anything. It goes from go to Monk to Marvin, just to the writing aspect. If you were to have the opportunity to reshoot this film, what would you change, if anything at all? It doesn't have to necessarily be the film. It could be the experience of the film. It could have been the writing process. It could just have been about enjoying the process. But what would you have changed?
I will say this. We made the best version of the film. That is the reality of what it is. All of us, I can say this for all of us, we all are much better artists from when we started the process, from when we ended the process. So it's just like I would frankly like to change everything. Not because not because the process or things, could have been better or whatever. It's just like I'm just a different person from the beginning of the process, like from conception to exhibition. So like every day I'm like, yeah, I would inherently change something, or it's like you always analyze things, but the truth, like we made the best version of the movie in the time it's the movie that needed to be made. But Monk and Giorgio, she can totally.
Honestly, I feel like it's just one of those things where it's like the art. It's like that artist like dilemma of just like, oh, like would you change everything? I mean, yeah, like you see artists all the time, like constantly like talking about how they probably could have changed this, could have changed it. But at the end of the day, like I'm proud of this film, so like I'm happy with it. I feel like going on too much is just rather just go on to making another wonderful project with the knowledge that I've learned.
Yeah, I agree. I think I really went, like, we shot in 13 days. I landed, no days off, 13 days, and then gone the next day after. And it was such a lightning in a bottle type moment. Like, it was just, we're in it, we're living in it. And I felt like I couldn't have enjoyed and soaked up the experience any more than I did. And I feel like I really enjoyed it and am proud of it. And when you were talking earlier of it having like a studio level grade, when I was watching it just now, I completely agree. And I love it because it is an independent, small cast and crew film where creative control is centralized. They're not doing anything and trying to appease a studio or doing this because this needs to sell and this for a global international sales points and things like that kind of become very removed from the creative process. I'm here with the creatives all time, and there's no real middlemen trying to get in the middle of that. And those are the types of stories and productions that I like to be a part of. And I feel like after the writer's strike and the actor's strike, which is still going on, it only made me value this experience a lot more. And not that I took it for granted when it was happening, because I completely appreciated it and was, completely giving it my all. But it just makes you still, in hindsight, appreciate like what two people by themselves are able to create, like Marvin and Georgios, that it is possible. You can do it yourself. You don't have to wait and sell and make compromises to anyone else for any other reason than telling the story that you want to tell.
Absolutely. That's a great thing you brought up about the whole studio thing. One of the reasons why people nowadays are really turning towards independent films is there's like that freedom, and you're not going to see something really stereotypical for the most part. You're going to see something richer, more dramatic. It's just, I just feel like they're more toned to reality than the big studio productions that you see. Not to say that they're bad as well, but it's refreshing how people are turning to independent films more and more, especially actors. A lot of actors are doing independent work because it really showcases their artistic talents, their dramatic performances. So they're turning to these roles for that, at least from the conversations I've heard. So like, I want to ask this, for the writers, when you guys originally wrote this project, and now that it's edited now and it's premiered and it's out to the world, was your original vision exactly the way it is, or is there a different movie out there in the universe?
I mean, just like just to let everyone know, for the audience, it's like the updated the version that you're seeing, it's a final version. It's just things happen, but for by and large, that's the movie that.
Yeah.
And back to your point earlier, it's just like I enjoyed the part that I loved. The part of the process I loved about this was the control. Like it should be stated that we had some financial assistance for private equity funding as those indies, but Georgios and I pulled most of the money from our own pockets. So we self-financed this film. So, and we did that mainly because we didn't want to get the clutter from potential production companies and other financiers. So, we made the movie in a very deliberate way. But I mean, again, like, this is this an updated version, and any movie, any piece of art, there's always another version that could have been made of it. So yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And like, and honestly, this is the best thing we could have made. And again, I'm freaking happy. I'm happy with it.
I want to hit you guys with some of these. What is next for Tyler? And I want you guys to answer anyway, each of you, like, what is next for the production stages? Where you plan to go with the film?
Okay. Took my a second to start with that. I'm like, wait.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. We're just starting the festival run for this. We're really grateful that Catskill International Film Festival hosted the film and gave it its first home. But yeah, we're just starting the festival circuit for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're working on other projects while we're, potentially with distribution companies. We're trying to like start talks with that. But we're working on different projects. I'm currently producing a feature film right now called The Beggar Man, starring Frankie Montero, who's the director of that film, who played Abel in this film. So, shout out to Frankie. Yeah, shout out to Frankie Montero. And then, Georgie also working on other projects. But Monk, Monk can share what he has going on and stuff.
Well, I'm on strike. I'm a SAG member.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
all studio related things. Like there's a
Yeah.
couple, waivers and studios that have been given things like A24, things that have been approved and have met all the requirements. But they come. I'm, looking at things, auditioning for things occasionally, but it's pretty much out of solidarity. Like the whole industry for the past since July really is really in a shifting point, and I feel like that shift ultimately goes back, like you're saying, into independent filmmaking. So more independent film things I create, like people create, individuals create, and kind of divesting from, I guess, more of a studio oriented process. Like that's it for now. Like I'm here, I'm writing this one. I love this one. I'm proud of this one. I'm glad that people get to see it and share it and start a dialogue with it.
Just to throw it out there, I know I could just tell you guys, this isn't going to be it for you. There's going to be many, many, many festivals to come. And I want to thank Marvin. I want to thank George for submitting this film and trusting us with your project. You could have submitted anywhere. And, we're neighbors to the Hudson Valley and in the Catskills. And we're really appreciative that you guys, submitted to us. We're thankful. And I want to hit you with this one last question. This is for each of you, and because I don't want to hold you all night, late at night, but we could talk till the wee hours of the morning, I'm sure. What do you hope audiences ultimately will get from seeing this film, or what do you hope they will get?
I want audiences to take away that there are no true heroes in life. There are no true absolutely bad people. There are, but that's not the majority of people. There's no absolutely good person. It's just like you are the person in the life you were born into, and you have a degree of free will, but sometimes society pressures will push you in a certain moral compass. Yeah.
I
George,
think the bounce off from Marvin, because yes, that, and of course, yeah, and I think another thing that gives us, like, it's a cautionary tale, and it's very much a story about actions and consequences, and very much like that's definitely a takeaway from this, like actions of consequences and all around, and you see from you just see it all throughout this entire film that, like, the consequences of people's actions, whether it be people dealing drugs or the economic circumstances, and letting people go because just based on whatever line go up, and then the consequences of people, someone like Tyler's actions. So that's essentially it.
Yeah, I agree in the same vein. Like I hope people take away just kind of honoring everyone's reality and perspective, because everyone clearly has such different realities and perspectives, and it's easy to typify and judge someone when they're going through something. You go, they look like this, they're doing this, that makes them a good person or a bad person. And it's harder to go beyond that and shift into a mode of understanding, and to go, maybe I agree, maybe I disagree, but I understand why, and to not judge, to shift into like perceiving everyone and giving people grace to, like you're saying, be their flawed, beautiful selves. You know what I mean? Because no one is perfect. We have our flaws, and that shouldn't be held against anyone, whether that's your own choice or the circumstance you were born into. Like, people shouldn't really have that be held against them,
Yeah, that was one of the takeaways I saw from the film as well. With your character is, you were being demonized for your past through a good percentage of the movie. There's one scene in particular when you're in the diner and the guy's giving you a hard time and you end up like spitting in his milkshake.
Right.
But it was like you're perceived as something you were that you tried to leave in the past.
Exactly.
And you see that time and time again with people that are, past, they're felons, and they get out and they try to turn a new leaf and do something better with their life in a positive direction. And your character at many times was reaching for that hope and to do something better, to not turn to your old ways, but people kept on persuading that side of you to come back in a way. And
exactly,
I think it's a wonderful performance. It's a wonderful film. And I think everyone seeing this Q&A afterwards goes back and watches it throughout the week. And if you like this movie and you really, really liked it, I urge you guys to go out and vote. Catskill International Film Festival.com. We have the polls up. Vote for your favorite projects. There's a bunch of different categories for People's Choice alone, not even counting the director's choices and whatnot, but People's Choice Awards, there's a lot of them. So if you guys like Tyler, I urge you guys to go out and vote for this film. And thank you guys so much for this time. I appreciate this.
Thank you, man. It was great to meet you. It was glad to be here.
Thank you, guys.